Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to a match reaction. It's finished Watford 1, QPR 2. Wow. Where do we start with that, lads? I'll chuck it over to you, Elliot, first. You may have joined us for the watch along earlier, and it was, the reaction when the second goal went in was just complete, dismay. We couldn't believe that. We couldn't believe some of the tactical decisions today. We couldn't believe some of the performances. And we couldn't believe, we could actually believe that QPR scored a goal. I said it. I thought they looked likely to score a second. Elliot, what's your initial reaction to that one, bud? It's a disappointing day at the office for Watford.
Yeah, from what I saw of the stream, which is very good, by the way, I sort of echoed your thoughts. It was just, it felt like we never really got going. I thought at points we were just sort of, I don't know if we were giving them too much space or giving them too much of a chance, or we just took it for granted. I think at points we maybe didn't take them seriously. I don't know why that would be, but I think it was, we underestimated them. I think they obviously wanted it more. They pressed us harder than we could press them. They controlled the midfield from the first minute, and ultimately the tactical changes weren't good enough to see us win. It was
it's difficult to sum it up, isn't it? I mean, Sam, who's to blame tonight?
I think ultimately it's the players. Doesn't really matter who's in charge. I think we've seen that this group of players ultimately are not good enough. Are not good enough for when you really need them. They're not good enough really to rely on in big games like this. Ultimately, it boils down to the players, but there's also massive questions on Munoz, which we'll obviously touch on later on. Baffling decisions with the lineup, baffling substitutions as well, which absolutely beyond me. And further to that as well, the questions to the boards, as I said on the live stream. Ngake did well tonight, but he looked so uncomfortable out at left back, and that boils down to the board not bringing in a backup left back in the summer or in this window. A striker, perhaps, who isn't going to make an impact on the game like Charlie Austin did today, brought QPR back in the game, kicking and screaming by himself pretty much. And it's just really frustrating. It's a combination of all three, but ultimately these players are not good enough and they keep on letting us down.
Mr. Blake says in the chat earlier, are we just a poorly coached team, do you think? I know it's one result, but is it as simple as that? Where do you pinpoint where it's going wrong at the moment?
I think it's harsh to say that it's a coaching problem. I know that they analyse everything from top to bottom after every game, before every game. I agree that the lineups weren't right. I agree that the changes weren't right, and it was borderline baffling that Zinchenko was brought on in centre midfield. So there were tactical flaws today, but I don't think it's a coaching problem. I think there were too many individual errors today, and it's not been the first time that we've lost because of individual errors. And I think that's going to be the sort of thing that would stop us going up in the long term, because if you sit back and you allow them to pressure you for that long, then there's going to be cracks, or there's going to be a sort of just any sort of gap that a team can come through. So I think it's just negative from the players, but I don't think it's completely something you can pin on the coach. I think that's a bit far. Is
it? I think also, Elliot, we've got to add though. It was in Sam. I'll throw it over to you. It was a negative approach from Xisco Munoz tonight. I think the first 30 minutes we can say QPR were the better team, although they didn't maybe create a clear-cut opportunity. They were really pinning us back. And then the second half, Watford got that early penalty, but it's like we're just trying to hold on to a 1-0 lead. We don't go for the second goal with 40 minutes remaining. It's almost like we're in the last 10 minutes of the game. We're trying to see out the game. But there's only been 5 minutes of the second half. It's crazy for me. But the approach from Xisco, surely it's got to take some criticism, hasn't it?
Yeah, we have to criticise Xisco. I think obviously it's a bit excessive to want him out, but I think we are starting to see perhaps that he's still learning as a coach. He's still incredibly tactically naive. Some of the decisions he makes are simply ridiculous and beyond me. Tactically, at times, he's not with it at all. Tonight, he got it completely wrong. And I do think a lot of it has to go on Xisco. But I'll say it again, that ultimately it's not him who goes out and plays, and it's ultimately not him who has to win the game by giving 110%. That's the players, and they're not doing that. They haven't done that now since the FA Cup semi-final, really, and it's so frustrating, the fact that the board can't see that.
But Sam, sorry to interrupt. Is it more than a lack of effort, though? Do you know what I mean? Is it more that we're just not good enough?
Quality.
We're not good
enough. Quality. Yeah, no, it's the fact we're not good enough. The fact we're not good enough. The fact that the players aren't putting in enough effort. they just don't really seem motivated by anything, which I think is unbelievable considering the amount of money they're on. Well, we're all stuck inside, and during a global pandemic, the least you can do is try at least. And I feel like at times they're just, and I see someone in the comments here, Jack, saying it's the tactics. He tells them how to play. If it was the tactics, we've changed the head coach now since Javi Gracia left. We've had Kike in, we've had Hayden Mullins in charge, we've had Pearson, we've had Mullins again, we've had Ivic, now Cisco, and we're seeing the same thing every single week. And it says a lot, the fact that 5 different managers can't get a tune out of the same core of players, and that's why it's not a tactical problem for me. And it's time we recognise these players simply aren't good enough.
Is it fair to say, Elliot, that the recent form, is it far to say that they've been papering over the cracks?
Yeah, no, it's not too far to say that. I think there have been points where we have played well, like against Stoke. I think we were actually very good, and we have been bailed out. It may be the mainstream opinion at the moment, but we are being bailed out by Troy Deeney hitting it down the middle with a penalty. Granted, it was a little bit to the side today, but that's not the point.
It's the win in itself, isn't it?
It's the fashioning chances in the final third that gets me. And like even watching the game today, I was being criticised by my parents for being happy that Sarr had skied it, because I thought at least we're actually getting the shot off. At least we're being unpredictable. You're on the edge of the box, and I find often we get the ball on the edge of the box. We're very slow, try and play it around the defence, try and play it around try and find the right angle to play it in, and we just faff basically. And I think it's so difficult because there were so many problems with today that you can't nail it down to one thing. But to answer your question, it is papering over the cracks. The past few games haven't been great. To say that we've been on this great win streak or this great unbeaten streak is overplaying it, and something does need to change tactically. And I think the first place to look is probably the 3 centre mids starting, having it, not necessarily them personally, but the idea of
on the left.
three because you could see it. You could see mentality wise, you've got Hughes on the left, so he will naturally drift into the middle. That leaves Jeremy Ngakia completely exposed in a position that is not his own. He's not got a favoured left foot, he's not left-footed. So then he's being absolutely dominated by Todd Kane, their right back, and they're just, they're overloading it to that side. So I think there were a lot of problems that have been there for a while and haven't really been exposed until now. And I think now they need to change, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, I said, I just put a tweet out, Sam, about, I think Elliot made a point about how much we're defending at the moment in terms of Xisco's approach. And I said, when you defend as much as we do, there will always be individual errors. The attack has been our weak point for too long now. It hasn't been addressed. Until that changes, there'll be more games like tonight. So this go back to you about, I don't want to maybe harp on about the recruitment, but it's another goal with a penalty tonight. Of course, Sarr did create the penalty by engaging with the contact. But the fact of the matter is, we're going forward without any sort of creativity. And when you defend as much as we do, and there was a couple of individual errors tonight that led to the goals. I mean, the fact is, with QPR and Charlie Austin up top tonight, had one chance, scored. Our strikers didn't have any chances.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that while I thought Troy and Zhao, I thought they did all right tonight. It was more the lack of service in my eyes, and I thought they tried to bring themselves back in the game. But again, it's the lack of quality. Charlie Austin literally brought QPR back into the game by himself with his hold-up play and keeping the ball forward for people to run onto it. And obviously he got that equaliser. You talk about creativity. We got rid of Domingos Quina today to get more game time. Why can't he get more game time with us? I understand he's not fully fit, but I just don't understand this. We've got this mindset that I'm still convinced the board has this mindset that this team is good enough to go up to the Premier League. It's not. And if we do go up, we're going straight back down. And I've no doubt we'll be in a similar position to what Sheffield United are in this year. The team is so poor in that final third. And the board, it's completely the board's fault, in my opinion. How they persist with the idea that our strikers are good enough, it's absolutely beyond me. I don't understand what they're watching. It's like they're watching Troy Deeney from 2014-15 rather than this season. Scott Duxbury said to us in the fans forum that he's going to address areas in January that's needed. Our strikers have scored 8 goals from open play this season. I saw a stat that Troy Deeney this season's had something like 20 shots on goal from open play. Charlie Austin said 15 and he made his QPR debut 2 weeks ago. That's all it says in itself. The team ultimately isn't good enough. The board haven't been good enough. That's not me saying board out, but the board haven't been good enough. The manager's naive and it's an absolute mess. And this isn't me overreacting because for the last few weeks have been papering over cracks. Swansea away was pathetic. First half against Huddersfield was poor. Barnsley, all right, we dug in quite well, but it still wasn't great. Millwall the other night, okay performance, but no creativity. Papering over cracks. We're an absolute mess from top to bottom at the moment. The fan base is incredibly toxic, and to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to seeing where we are this time next year.
Just focusing in on the tactical element of that point, Elliot, that Sam made. For me, the biggest concern is we've made a managerial change midway through the season. I could see it fizzling out with Xisco. Now it's early days, it's 7 games in, but I have to agree with Sam in the sense that it is papering. I do believe the results have been papering over the cracks for some of the performances, the way we've been setting up. I understand. I mean, the away games, you can understand why he's setting up like that a bit more, but particularly at home, it's not acceptable to set up the way we did tonight, so deep, literally looking to play on the counter-attack. Maybe he thinks this team isn't good enough, but for me, Elliot, there is no difference between the style of play we're seeing under Vladimirovic and the style of play we're seeing under Xisco Munoz. Is that the 2 head coaches, or is that the players we've got and they feel that's the best way to get results?
I think, again, very difficult one to unwrap and to unravel. I think we do play different football under Xisco Munoz. I understand that there are some similarities there. I think there are the same flaws that are present in some areas. But ultimately, we don't tend to sit back at 1-0 as much as we did under Ivic. Granted, we did today, and that needs to be addressed immediately. Xisco Munoz has said in his post-match press conference, there needs to be more intensity, which he's completely right about. There was no intensity there. And maybe it was difficult for him to articulate properly in his post-match interview quite what problems he had with the game. But I think it's a stretch to say that the football is the same, because I think that there are some vital differences in how we respond to going one goal up or 1 goal down. I think we need to give him a bit more time. I've seen people calling for his head tonight. I think it's quite frankly ridiculous. I don't think that's right at all. But there are, that's not dismissing that there are tactical problems. I don't want to just be completely positive about everything after we've lost a game that we should have won. There are a lot of problems there that need to be addressed and need to be fixed. From defence to attack, to be honest, I think Daniel Backman is the only one that could probably say he handled the game well. I don't think he made any notable errors. I don't think he was at fault for either goal, really.
I thought Ken did well, actually, as well, when he came on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ken Summer did very well. And there are some players that you can look at and go, well, there's not much they could have done. You've got Jeremy Ngakia, who, like I've said, is playing on his unfavoured side. He's not got a left foot, and it's difficult. Philip Zinkenagel comes on in the middle. I think he should have played better, but he's not a central midfielder. So in that sense, Xisco can't bring on Philip Zinkenagel in central midfield. So I feel like I'm going around in circles. I feel like I'm just.
I think the thing is, sorry, Elliot, just to interrupt there. I'll just say my piece on Xisco. For me, the decision to take off Chalobah and then bring on Zinkenagel at central midfield when the game is at 1-1 next to a yellow-carded Tom Cleverley was absolutely baffling, naive, and suggests he's tactically out of his depth for me, if we're being brutally honest with it. That was an incredibly naive substitution. Whether, I think someone mentioned Chalobah might have had cramp, but even still, that decision to put him on at central midfield was baffling. But that goes back to bringing on Hughesy. Tactically, I thought he got it wrong today. I thought we were way too deep. We weren't taking the game to QPR. The reaction after we scored the goal was actually negative, if anything, unbelievably. We scored the goal and we sat off even further. It was crazy. It was like, okay, we'll go on and score a second. Like, there was maybe 5 minutes after the goal where we looked a bit better, but I think me and you, Sam, said on the watch long, we just dropped off, didn't we? It was so frustrating to see the same problems creep in. And I think you're right in the sense, Sam, that we've got away with it maybe for the past few weeks, but I'm trying to find, I'm just trying to work out where it's going wrong. I think there's a number of elements, isn't there, from the recruitment to the personnel we have at the moment to tactically, and for whatever people are saying about Xisco, and I agree, Elliot, the calls for Xisco out are number one far-fetched and a little bit OTT, I think. But the criticism is well and truly justified for me because actually is it justified? Because at the same time, I'd actually argue the criticism should be to above, because the fact we're appointing such an inexperienced manager in this point of view was highlighted tonight. That fact he hasn't got enough experience and enough tactical know-how at this point in his career, because he hasn't had a lot of time to really craft his tactical skills. And for me tonight showed his weaknesses. Sam, I don't know about you, but it was a combination of player performances and him that just got it wrong.
Yeah, but let's be brutally honest as well. We know exactly why he was appointed. Firstly, because the players aren't going to stand up to him. The players are going to stand up to him, like when they stood up to Ivic, and it didn't end well from there. And they can easily walk over Xisco, to be honest with you. He's also not going to demand the board for signings, and like Xisco was saying, I need a left back. He's not going to go in his press conferences and say I need a striker. For Xisco, it's a win-win. If he does well in his job, good. He's doing well in the Premier League because we'll go up. If he doesn't do well, okay, everyone knows he gets sacked at Watford, so it's good experience for him, and that's exactly why he's been appointed, because he's just easy. He's easy for the board to control, and it's easy for the players to walk over. The players are the problem here, and ultimately they need to change. And I've had enough. It's been 2 years, and I think tonight with this transfer window, that performance, I think it's not helped with not being at stadiums, but this for me is rock bottom of late.
Some of the comments rolling in at the moment. You got a smile, really. Elliot, for me, the biggest concern tonight was the reaction after the goal, particularly. That was unacceptable, really, just to drop off like that. I don't know about what you think of the way we reacted, but I think to go 1-0 up and then just to try and hold on for 40 minutes at home, bizarre for me. Bizarre. Yeah,
it was weirdly, you'd think after conceding the equaliser or the second goal, you'd be at your worst point, but it was actually after we scored that we were at the lowest point. It felt very reminiscent of some of the bad games under Ivic, because I think we're sometimes claiming that the time under Ivic was all negative. There were actually some very, very good performances in that time, but very, very good as a stretch. But it was reminiscent of the poor performances under Ivic, where we would go 1-0 up and we'd sit back, or even at 0-0 we'd sit back, and that hasn't been seen much so far under Xisco. A lot of the time when we've gone 1-0 up, we've kept on going. We still haven't had that fantastic performance that we feel we probably deserve this season, given the quality of the squad, or quality we thought the squad had. And it was after going 1-0 up, you've got to keep pushing forward. You've got to keep attacking, and it looked like we were sort of scared. I don't really understand why we were scared to try and get another against the side that, if you look at it on paper, they haven't beaten a team in the top 12 until now all season. And they've got good away form. They're in pretty good form at the moment, bar a defeat to Derby County, who are in very good form. So you can't underestimate them as a team, but they've not beaten a team in the top 12 all season until now. So you shouldn't be running scared. You shouldn't be defending like we have, and we should have been trying to go 2-0 up, because this is a team fighting for promotion.
I'm really lost for words tonight, Sam. I'm hurting, to be honest, after watching that. Really, I'm really. People say it's one result, but I think tonight was an opportunity. We've waited till Monday for tonight's game to put in that performance from both a tactical standpoint and personnel as well is just incredibly disappointing. And I just don't know. I just don't know where we go from here, really. I know it's only one result, but I feel the fan base at the moment is incredibly divided. We've got disagreements about loads of players. We've got criticism now being aimed at the manager, and I understand the criticism being aimed at the manager. We've got players who maybe aren't good enough. We maybe haven't addressed key areas. Are we getting too ahead of ourselves here? And being fair, that this is we're maybe getting ahead of ourselves. Do you think?
No, we're not. When was the last time we actually properly played well? Genuinely.
For a full game? For a
full 90 minutes. For a full 90 minutes.
That's a very difficult
question. I tell you what, I thought the tactical approach in the Norwich game was very good. I thought that they executed the game plan well. Now, what you define as a good performance, for me, that was a good performance because we sensed Norwich's weaknesses and we did that. So December, Xisco's first game, but funnily enough, that was when the managerial bounce was.
But managerial bounce, and also that was 7 games ago now. To go up in the Championship, you need to be consistently good. And you could argue that that was pretty much the only good performance of the season as well. Maybe Bournemouth at home when we drew, I actually thought we were pretty good that day as well. But this whole season, I think the words underwhelming. It's not lived up to expectations. We all thought that we'd walk this league. Perhaps that was naive of us from supporters, and it probably was, thinking that we could just walk this league. But my problem is that when I see players walking around, when I see players not putting in 110% and dying for the shirt every single game, that's where I have a problem. And, you can say it's a tactical problem. You can say the board are at fault, but ultimately these players aren't good enough. And it really hurts. It's been papering over cracks. And I think now is pretty much, it's almost like when you're holding something in for so long and eventually it explodes. And I think that's what we're seeing now with Watford fans on social media. I'm looking in the comment section here and it's all got too much now. It's been 2 years and it's difficult.
I don't know what else to add to that, to be honest with you. I just feel really, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Sam, to be honest with you. I think it does feel like it's bubbling over now, Elliot. I know we're all three fans. We care about the club dearly, as every other Watford fan who's watching this does tonight. But there's a real lack of, I don't think it helps not being at the games. There's a real lack of emotional attachment to this team, not the club, just the team. And for me, that is really, really concerning because actually, if you just to throw this over to you, Elliot, Watford have the same amount of points as the 2014-15 season after 27 games, right? So exactly the same points. But I remember that team and the mood inside the fan base was incredibly positive. Maybe because the manner in which we're winning games, maybe the manner in which we were at the games as well, and the fact that we had a bit of a connection to the team we're watching. At the moment, I feel absolutely no connection to this Watford team. I don't know about you, Elliot, and it's quite a difficult question to put you in, but the difference is stark between this team this season and that promotion team in 2014-15. What is the difference, do you think? Because they're on the exact same amount of points.
I think the comparisons are difficult to make because this is a side that's come down from the Premier League that's had some of the fan favourites leave, some of the players that we've had these memories of leave the club. And because ultimately, if you're in a relegation season, those who have played well in the relegation season will go. That's just a natural thing, aside from a couple of players that we've done very well to hold on to. But the difference with the 2014-15 season was that was the highest we'd been in a long time. And we were, at a point where the Premier League wasn't the level that we remembered, really. It was quite a while ago, and perhaps the expectations were lower. I think it's justified to say that there is a disconnect, and I think there is a disconnect, and the players aren't up to scratch at the moment, to be honest. But the comparisons to 2014-15 are so difficult because the attitudes were different at the time. We were off the back of a lot of mid-table finishes rather than a lot of mid-table Premier League finishes. So I think it's difficult.
I'll tell you what, to put a smile on your face, David Cameron Walker, Super Dangles leads to the rescue, lads. Don't panic. Two-peg. Make sure you go in and check out the latest from the Rookery End podcast, which I imagine will be out on all platforms very soon. We're not going just yet. We're going to be discussing your thoughts, but I just wanted to let you know there's loads of you guys watching after a disappointing result and performance from Watford this evening. If you do enjoy, please do leave a like. I know you're probably not enjoying but if you enjoy our content, that would be massively appreciated. And make sure you go and follow Elliot and Sam on Twitter as well. Do some fantastic stuff. I say it every time, but they really do. So make sure you go and give them a follow and get involved with their content. And that would be brilliant. Moving on to maybe another aspect to the lineup, Sam. I don't want to keep maybe barking on about Xisco, but I think the phrase that a lot of people are using is square pegs and round holes. And the Will Hughes situation kind of epitomises that, I think, playing him out on the left-hand side, whether it's him on the left, Cleverly on the right. That's got to change now. Surely he has to.
Yeah, it's got to change. I think Ken Sema has earned a start from his little cameo tonight. I thought he was brilliant. Actually, he was taking the game to QPR. He showed more direct play than any of the other QPR players, not QPR, any other Watford players tonight did. We're not seeing the best out of Will Hughes on the left. I think he's struggling out on the left. He didn't enjoy being out on the right, out wide under Javi, or central right, whatever you want to call it. I think he thrives in that central midfield position. Difference is that a difficult thing is you have to pick between probably Hughes or Hughesville Cleverley to drop, and it would probably be Tom Cleverley. But it's square pegs in round holes. That's the exact phrase for it. And we need to see people back in their natural positions, I think, before we start going into more, like the nitty gritty tactics.
Yeah, it does seem baffling, Elliot, that we're playing midfielders out wide when we've got Sem. I know Sem is being integrated back in because he was. I understand why he didn't start. But Zinchenko, I mean, at what point are we going to see him? It's just like, it's crazy. Another week without him playing, and we're both massive fans of him. We're not getting that opportunity to see him, and then when we bring him on, we're playing him at central midfield. It's absolutely bizarre for me. Absolutely bizarre.
It feels very Watford. We did it with. I remember it sticks in my mind most when we had Will Hughes come in. He didn't play for months. He came in. He sort of lit the league alight, and then turned into the player he was. It doesn't make sense not to start Zinchenko in that game. It doesn't make sense to play a central midfielder out wide in a game like that. That doesn't make sense. That's one of those things that you just can't really explain. And granted, Sema's coming back. Maybe it's not right to start him straight away. Having seen how he played tonight when he did come on, he's got to start the next game. Well, he's got to start the next game if Zinchenko isn't starting the next game, because there has to be a player on the left in the next game. It's as simple as that. It doesn't make sense to have three centre midfielders in that against that opposition that we're using Todd Kane to that sort of in that way, to have him overlap and have him put in the crosses to players like Macaulay Bourne and Charlie Austin. It doesn't make sense. I can't think of any other way of putting it. It just doesn't make sense.
I have to admit, Elliot, for me, it's early days, and I think how many games has Zinchenko been at the football club? Maybe 6, 7 now.
Yeah.
I'm really getting Steven Berghaus vibes from this one already. I know, on a serious note, I can see, and I genuinely, it's happening again, where we're not playing a player in their right position. We're giving them cameos. We're not starting them. I understand you've got to phase him in, but at what point are we going to keep playing central midfielders over an actual winger out wide, Sam? I mean, I find it baffling.
He'll go,
baffling.
by the way. If this carries on with Zinchenko, he'll go at the end of the season. No doubt. If you listen to the deals he turned down from, what was it, Celtic, he had Premier League offers, he won't stay. Why would he want to stay if he's going to be playing out of position? And it's so frustrating.
Tim says, lost for words, Jake and mate. Tim does these fan cams with us. It is really, really difficult to start the emotions at the minute, Sam. I mean, where do we go from here? Just where do we go from here? Because I feel like, sorry, mate, but I feel like with this performance, it's such a low, it's very difficult to pick ourselves back up again. And for me, I think we said it in the preview, and we've got to, it's 1 point out of our last 2 against Millwall and QPR. And actually, before I just answered the question, Sam, credit to QPR tonight, because they sensed our weaknesses, they took their chances, and Mark Warburton got his tactics spot on. I thought they did really well tonight, and you've got to be fair, QPR, fair play to them, right? But for me, Sam, this is a real low point in our season. And we said in the preview, these next couple of games, I think it was QPR, then Commentary, these two, when we're, especially today, when we're playing after everyone, we've got to win. We've got to keep the pressure on. And we haven't done that. It feels like a momentous point in this season. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
100%. I think in my time supporting Watford as well, I'd say this is a new low as well. I touched on it as well. I think it's contributing as well to the fact that we're not at games as well. But it just, I've never felt more disconnected from the club, and I don't really know where to go from here. I don't know where we go from here, because the transfer window is shut. Unless we bring someone in the next 17 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's not happening, mate.
Yeah, we're stuck with these players the rest of the season, so it's gonna be a tough ride until the end, and maybe we've got just enough to sneak it through the playoffs. But even then, can you trust on these players to turn up when you really need them? Probably not. So it's really difficult.
Elliot, can I just ask you a question? Do you think there's an element of Watford fans at the moment that we're overreacting? I said we're, as if you're not part of it. I mean, like, is there an element that some Watford fans are overreacting? I think the Xisco out calls are way over the top.
Yes,
I agree with you. But is there an overreaction? I think Holly mentioned it in the chat about, this is only one game, or is it bigger than that for you? Or less?
I'm a bit split with it, because it's not one game. It is bigger than that, and it is more important than that. And I don't think people are necessarily overreacting, but It's so difficult because you've got to put the league position into account.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
a very poor championship season. That's a fact. The teams are not performing. You've got Brentford are doing very, very well, and they're on a fantastic unbeaten run. They had a terrible start, and they needed time to gel. Apart from Ivan Toney, they didn't really have a great start. Norwich had a period of time where they had a ton of players out injured, and I think they went on a run of about 3 games without winning. They had, you look at Swansea, who have taken times where they've not got wins where they should have done against teams that they should be beating, and yet they're still very, very far in front of us, and that is a very big problem. However, I don't think it is all doom and gloom. I think if we were to win on the weekend, we wouldn't be saying, "Oh, well, this is still the situation. We're still favourite." I don't think that would be the case. I think it's only because we've lost and because it's a late goal. It's all very difficult to take, and it's coupled with the transfer window being disappointing. I think it's all very negative at the moment, and although that's justified, I don't think that's necessarily the case that it's all doom and gloom. I think we are still doing fairly well. I think there are some players that played quite well today, and that there's still some considerable talent at this football club that if everything falls into place, I think we can make a charge for promotion. I don't think promotion is out of the question either. I think there are many positives, but it's just difficult to talk about those after a defeat like that and after a transfer window where there has been disappointment.
I think but Elliot, I just want to say to that, like, I mean, for me, this is a low as well, because I don't really see where. I mean, you say that if things fall into place, for me, that's a massive if. I just can't see how we can rely on these players time after time, week after week. They've been letting us down now, and I know our league. I genuinely believe our league position doesn't reflect the performances and where we are as a team at the moment, and I don't trust any of these players to kind of take the season by the scruff of the neck and drag us kicking and screaming back into the automatic promotion race. And for me, that's why I feel so low with it all at the moment.
Well, Joe says even if we drew tonight, I'd still feel similarly about this team. I do think even if we hadn't lost tonight, I still think we'd be coming away disappointed. To be honest, well, I would. I don't want to speak on behalf of you guys, but I would be anyway. Just to ask you another question there, Sam. For me, another big frustration is, there was this whole thing with Vicarage, and I was one of them where I was like, right, we're not in first gear yet. We're a couple below that. We're waiting for it all to click into gear, and it hasn't happened yet. Like I don't think we have. Is that fair? Because I just don't think we've clicked into gear tonight. And for me, the warning signs tonight were so early on, but we did nothing to do that, and we're doing nothing to change that. We're not being proactive, both on and off the pitch, I think. But it's just frustrating that it hasn't clicked into gear. Yeah,
it's so frustrating because we keep on seeing these small signs and small glimpses. I look at players like Ismail Assar, who I'd say he's had an underwhelming season, whether that's his fault or not his fault. And we keep on seeing glimpses from him, like tonight when he won the penalty. And I think he's a really good example of the team where overall it's just not been good enough. And it's now time where we question, we get the results when the performances aren't there, but what about when we aren't getting the results? Where are the performances? Where can we say that we're proud of this Watford side? And the fact that we haven't clicked into gear yet, I think pretty much shows where we are. And there's a reason for that, why it's taken so long and why we haven't clicked into gear yet. It's because these players aren't good enough, tactically not good enough, and the whole football club not good enough.
Elliot, how much? We don't want to go on for too long because it's not a great. Well, we're being honest with our thoughts, and if you do enjoy, guys, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Elliot, just going back onto tonight, how much of a miss with the two fullbacks? Because I think Ngaki did the best he could, I think, at left back, but you could tell he struggled, and even Navarro at right back. To be fair, I didn't think he was awful, but you could tell there's a massive drop off, wasn't there, in the two fullbacks?
Yeah, but I've said enough about Jeremy Ngaki. I think he gave it his best shot. I don't think he was bad. I think he was actually okay. I think he did well in parts, but it was little times like towards the end of the game when he was being trusted to overlap Ken Summer. But when you overlap, you've then got to swing it in on your left foot, and we know he doesn't have that left foot to swing the cross in, unlike someone like Ken Summer. So he's been handed quite a difficult pack of cards in that sense. And then Mark Navarro, I don't know if it's a lack of football. I don't know if it's not being used to the system or whether he's just not up to it today or something like that, because he wasn't right today. I think poor I think poor does cover it. I think he was poor tonight. I don't think he performed up to scratch. And when you've got someone like Kiko Femenia that's performing to such a high level, to then go to Mark Navarro and his performance, it's difficult to take. But yeah.
Particularly for that one, after we need a reaction tonight, don't we? It's whether we get one is the bigger question.
Yeah, away from home as well. I don't want to see us sit back. We can't sit back. I know it's away from home, but we have to attack teams like Coventry. We scored 3 against them earlier this season and conceded 2 really stupid goals against them, and arguably got away with it. And absolutely huge. I mean, we're going to say this every week now that this is an absolute must-win, but particularly coming off that and dropping points where Millwall away is absolutely huge. We get the 3 points on Saturday.
And just, I know, Sam, you mentioned before the game you wanted to touch on the transfer business. Should we do that for another video, or do you think do it now? It's up to you.
I think we need a clear head.
Yeah, I think we need a clear head. I'll tell you what, to maybe tomorrow or the day after, we'll do a transfer video. We'll schedule one in and get you guys involved. But thank you to everyone who's watched our content this evening. Our first watch along on the channel, which went down really well despite the result. So we really do appreciate the support and on tonight's match reaction. There was loads of you watching. So thank you very much for getting involved with our content. Difficult one to take. We go again. Commentary next week. Make sure you follow Sam and Elliot on their socials. It's just there. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe on WD18. And someone says, what transfers? Just reviewing the transfer window. I think it's probably the best way to describe it. So thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourself, guys, and we'll see you very soon. Cheers, guys.